Hey, Julie, how you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to see you, and congratulations on voting. You got the button. See, I got the sticker. Stickers
I
don't
got the
work too well
sticker.
in the humid Virginia summer. Oh, that's just a bigger sticker.
Yes.
Looks like a button.
I just clearly haven't been going outside as much as you have. It is really gross out there.
I got the little oval I voted that apparently didn't even make it like an hour before it fell off.
We
in
get
humidity.
the expensive ones.
Yeah, well, you're Northern Virginia.
That's right.
You know, we're down here in Farmville. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, but thank you for doing your civic duty. I'm curious. It was a really low key primary down here where I live. I mean, very low turnout today. I think at noon I was I think I was number 59 at my precinct. What about Northern Virginia? Could you tell that there was a primary going on? Were there a lot of yard signs, a lot of campaign commercials?
Not a lot, really. I mean, I honestly, it's interesting during the presidential, even in my super liberal neighborhood, there weren't that many signs for any candidate. I mean, there was a dearth of Hillary signs, which was quite telling. But yeah, I don't see a lot here. And I think people, it's just like election fatigue. I think people are still burnt from the presidential. They just feel kind of, not as interested. That's the sense I get from sort of the people in my neighborhood, the people up here. So no, not a lot of signs, not a lot of talk, not even people on Facebook this morning really talking about it.
Well, you will be made to care, and in the months ahead, I'm sure we'll all be inundated with the campaign ads. I think it's going to be. I mean, they're spending $40 million on this special election in Georgia. So for Virginia and New Jersey off-year elections, I imagine there's going to be a ton of spending on the governor's race and on a lot of state legislative races here.
Yeah, look, I certainly care, and I think people do care. I care about the Second Amendment. I care about I care about getting a tax cut. I care about reining in government. So these are things that I check, and but I just haven't seen people really posting about stuff. But yeah, I certainly am checking these issues. I certainly am concerned about this race. It's very, very important for me as a citizen of Virginia, and I think for the health of the state. So I just think people are being a little bit more low key again because the last election cycle. I think some people still haven't recovered from it. So I think people are just trying to keep a low profile on this issue or on the election.
Interesting. All right. It's the election. That is the issue, I guess, for those people, right?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of politicians, we'll do one more political story. Then I want to move on to what you actually wrote about, the stuff you're here to plug. But I sent you a story earlier today. I was fascinated by this. WDOP in Washington, D.C. Had the story of this study about, it was a dorm that the cafeteria decided it was going to rename the vegetables in the school cafeteria. So it wasn't just, here's broccoli. It was sizzling broccoli, sizzling beans was one of them. I remember that. And, just like to make it sound more appealing, seductive names. Here we go. Dynamite beets, twisted citrus glazed carrots. And apparently more veggies were eaten as a result of the name change, the seductive sounding name. So apparently our parents had it all wrong, Julie, when they said eat your veggies. They should have said eat your pan-seared, olive oil drenched,
cured
arugula salad,
confit of carrots,
locally sourced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sort of torn on this issue. I mean, first of all, this is yet another one of these millennial stories where, what are you, 5 that you need like a fancy name for your vegetables? But at the same time, look, we know this. We know that people react better, to food marketers. I mean, that's why we have front of the label, healthy, good for you, fat-free, non-GMO. All of these labels litter food packaging today. And the reason is people want to feel virtuous or that it's exciting or that they're kind of eating something new. And so I'm not surprised by these results, but it is kind of silly.
But it goes beyond food. Elizabeth Esty, who's a congresswoman from Connecticut, was at an event, I think this was last week, talking with members of the LGBT community about gun control. But she said, don't talk about gun control. Don't use those words, because if you use those words, then I think she said 15% of your intended audience automatically drops out. They're not interested in listening to what you have to say. So use the phrase gun safety, she said instead.
Yeah.
Don't change what it is that you're talking about. Don't change your policies. Don't change that. Just call it something different. And so I'm looking at these lists here, right? So these were the four. There was actually four choices for what you could call the carrots. Carrots, the healthy restrictive option, carrots with sugar-free citrus dressing.
Delicious.
The health positive option, smart choice vitamin C citrus carrots, and the indulgent twisted citrus glazed carrots. As seductive names, they said, resulted in 25% more people selecting the vegetable compared with basic labeling, just calling it a carrot. 41% more people than the healthy restrictive labeling, because we don't like being nanny, Julie. Right? So if it's a nanny thing, it's eat your carrots, it's healthy. Yeah. We don't want to. We rebel. We'll say, no, we're going to have a brownie instead, lunch lady.
Yeah.
And then 35% more people than the healthy positive labeling. So it makes sense from a psychological perspective, but what do we do as consumers of carrots, as voters? What do we do to attune ourselves to the fact that, we're being played with, Julie? People are, exactly.
Yeah. Look, message testing is nothing new. Campaigns do it. Big business does it. Everyone does it. I know that IWF itself has done it. Because we are an educational organization. We're a think tank, and we want to help people understand these very complex issues and kind of, take away a lot of the noise and really explain to women in understandable, and not just women, everyone in really understandable ways, sort of basic ways. This is why mandatory leave policies aren't good. This is why menu labeling isn't good. This is why the healthcare bill is an improvement. And it's important to understand what kind of messages work on women. And some of the research that we've done show that women don't really like to be told, you're wrong on this, or this is the right way to think. And so there is, I don't want to sort of demonize all message testing. It is important that we communicate. But it is funny how when you look at the left, for instance, they coined the phrase progressive. Well, who doesn't want to be progressive? What do you want to be, regressive? You want to be like back in the Stone Age? I mean, no, you want to be a progressive, enlightened person. It's a brilliant turn of phrase. It in no way reflects their policies, but it makes them look like the superior people on policy.
Well, and again, with the gun control debate,
right.
I think it's a little bit different. Look, at the end of the day, no matter how you describe the carrot, you're talking about a carrot. Right? It's still a carrot.
Right.
So how best to eat your carrot?
Yeah.
Well, with the gun control movement, or I'm sorry, the quote unquote gun safety movement. They're calling a carrot a popsicle.
Yep.
Right? They're saying people don't like carrots, so we'll just call it something else. We'll pretend that it's something else. But popsicles already exist, and gun safety already exists.
Exactly.
It includes going to a range. It means, getting training, not because it's government mandated, because it's available to you.
Right.
And these gun control advocates want to make that as hard as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you've got people who are anti-popsicle, calling popsicles or calling carrots popsicles in order for you to eat the carrot. And I think that's dishonest. I don't think it's just, marketing the, how do we best get our message across? I think it's how do we best get a deceptive message across.
Yes.
And I think that's very different.
It really is, and it's a very good point.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's talk about what you wrote this week, shall we? I love having you on. It's so easy. We never argue.
Sometimes.
Babies in cardboard boxes, Julie. Really? Babies in cardboard boxes? Is that the new trend?
Look, you say it like it's something you don't like, and it's a great idea. I personally was placed in a dresser drawer. It's so funny. I told someone that. I wrote it in my piece that my dad, after I came home with my first son from the hospital, my husband and I, there's the crib, there's the bassinet, there's the Moses basket, there's just all these. And my dad was sort of, huffing and puffing. He was very sort of curmudgeonly about it. And he said, oh goodness, this baby has, several places to sleep. Nothing's too good for this baby. Whereas I was placed apparently in a dresser drawer. It's so funny. I mentioned this to a couple friends, and they thought my parents actually closed me in the dresser. And it was like, no, they took the dresser drawer out. So maybe that's the concern. But apparently, this is
and
now.
here's our baby. I just imagine you.
Now look, I right
That's
now with my older kids, I would love to slam them in the dresser drawer and trap them in the dresser drawer sometime. But that's a whole different issue. What they're talking about here is, and this has become quite common in American hospitals in a couple states, they're giving away basically a cardboard box. Now, this isn't like some discarded FedEx box. This is a very nice lined box. And they put in, and this happens with everyone. You get a kind of a to-go bag after you have a baby. The hospital gives you like a little diaper bag and some diapers.
It's a care package.
It's a care package. Well, they're putting them in these boxes that can hold the infant for probably a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. And it's a sort of little bed. Now, part of the reason this has become popular is it's common in Finland. And in Finland, there's a very low infant mortality rate. And so hospitals are saying, this is sort of a way to maybe reduce co-sleeping, or maybe you could put the box in the bed. And so the baby has his own space and you're not going to roll over on the baby. So there's a whole bunch of theories on why this might work. Now, I don't really care. I think this is perfectly fine. I mean, again, I apparently slept in a dresser drawer for a couple of months. So I don't think this is, I think people will survive, right? Well, the regulators are already getting wind of this, okay? Because apparently there is no office in the federal government that oversees baby boxes. And so everybody's all spun up about this. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission is already sort of agitating about this and saying, oh, goodness, maybe we should have some hearings about this. Is it okay? Is it safe? What are the boxes made of? Are the boxes sturdy? I mean, the list of questions that this one official from the Consumer Product Safety Commission had is ridiculous. And again, parents are too stupid to look at a box and say, is this sturdy? Is it going to fall apart? Is it wet? I mean, it's absolutely absurd. So again, I don't see anything wrong with putting your baby in a box for a couple months. Newborns don't move around a whole lot. So you put them anywhere. They're pretty much going to stay there. But again, it's just fascinating to see the nannies sort of freak out about this. And the other groups that are probably going to support the regulatory freak out is, of course, the baby industry. The big box stores that sell all the baby stuff, because my goodness, they don't want the popularity of baby boxes to take off. What will people do? Probably save a couple $100 on the crib and other paraphernalia that you're buying for the baby. So it's kind of an interesting issue.
It is an interesting issue. I can only assume that, again, for those people who don't get the crib, and you said you didn't put your kids in a dresser drawer.
I did not.
You did not pass on that family tradition.
I did not.
Which is really disappointing.
I'm sure this will shock you. I'm sure this will shock you, but I had a mile list of items that I had to buy before I had a baby. I know that'll shock, but I was a bit of a high maintenance new mom. So I had everything. I had a warmer for the diaper wipes. It warmed because my sweet baby couldn't have a cold diaper. Now by the second baby, I was like, that's out of there. I didn't care, So by the third baby, I'd practically returned to the dresser drawer. But luckily,
He's sleeping with the dog.
Luckily,
right?
I loved the first kid better, so I got he could use that hand-me-down crib. And anyway, so yeah, I didn't.
Well, I was just thinking about like where this would come in handy, because I just don't. Again, whatever, man. If you want to use a box as a crib, great, cool. Who cares? Exactly. Who cares? Well, the government cares. That's the thing. Bureaucrats care, and that's the point, right?
I'm not a big fan of putting a baby in a box, but who cares? They're safe. It's not. It's just I feel like we become so soft that the idea of putting a baby in a box is so horrifying, and it could kill. It's just this overreaction.
Because that baby deserves that $500 bassinet, hand carved by Ozark Mountain artisans. Exactly. No, I get what you're saying. But to me, I think they're probably going to end up in that bassinet at some point anyway.
Yeah.
Some people, honestly, Julie, like it didn't happen with us because we ended up both, all of my kids that I have with my wife, we had to induce. So we had plenty of time to get ready. That doesn't happen with everybody. I have known friends who are like, we weren't ready yet. We didn't have everything prepared. And then the baby's here. And so I could maybe see for like a week or two while you're getting the baby's room ready. That's probably what that's going to be used for. Again, who cares? It doesn't seem like there's an issue. So just leave it alone, bureaucrats.
Look, we forget too, though. You know, you and I are talking in this way, like, oh, you know, we're probably going to put him in the bassinet and then the crib. And then there's a heck of a lot of people in this country that struggle to put food on the table. And so for those people, this box is really useful. And in some ways, the regulators should be applauding that hospitals are giving out something that's sort of standardized, that the nurses and doctors are not giving out a box that's filled with rat poison. Okay, they're giving, it's a nurse it's a nurse that's giving out this box. She's not like, oh, it's wet, but it'll be fine, right? I mean, and so again, I feel like with everything, with weddings, with parties, with having a baby, there is aspirational shopping. I was one of these people who thought, oh my God, my child can't possibly live without a bassinet and a Moses blanket or a Moses basket and a baby Bjorn and this and that. You know, I sort of felt like you needed all this stuff.
The warmer for the
butt
wipes.
warmer. Give me a break. I mean, I was a parody of that woman that like, I must have everything. And I just think it's really nice that maybe there's a trend going in the opposite direction for people who really can't afford these things, yet feel this pressure. Because again, the narrative out there, if you're a good mom, if you love your kid, you're going to buy the best of everything. I mean, I can go on for an hour about, you buy the best organic food and non-GMO and all this stuff. I mean, it's beyond just the baby products. So I think it's great to have a trend in this direction. And then of course, when a good trend comes out here, a possible cost-saving trend that will really save people hundreds of dollars, if it's not approved by certain regulatory agencies, it makes them nervous. So it's just an interesting story. I hope this trend continues. I hope people have these choices. And again, throw the box away or give it away. Give it to Salvation Army if you don't want it and use your expensive crib. But it's nice that there are these choices.
And if you don't get a box, you now know, listening to Julie, that you can use a dresser drawer instead.
Right. Gosh.
There you go.
Make sure there's no nails sticking out. Okay, I don't want to get in trouble here. Look at me.
No, there's no substitution for common sense. You still got to make sure it's safe and appropriate. The baby's going to fit. But Julie turned out fine.
I'm fine.
There you go.
Kind of.
Fine. You don't like hugs. You wrote about that at a Culturator. We're running out of time here, but just quickly, you're on Team Seinfeld. No random hugging.
I wrote this. Okay, this is I am a hugger. I hug everyone. So it's kind of hilarious that I wrote this piece sort of in favor of. Not like going back to Victorian days where no one touched each other, but I do think it's strange. Sometimes, I will see someone multiple times a week and they still reach out to give me a hug. And I'm like, I just saw you yesterday. We don't have to have this sort of reunion. Anyway, this is a long, I don't mean to go on and on, but yeah. So I wrote this piece because Seinfeld ran away from this movie star who sort of ran up to him and said, oh, can I give you a hug? And he said, no, it was Kesha, whatever she does.
Kesha, yeah. Poor Kesha. Nobody knows who Kesha is.
Nobody knows who Kesha is. But anyway, so he said, he said no.
Who Kesha is. I know who you are, Kesha.
You have teenagers, so. But he said he didn't want a hug, which was sort of unheard of, and it went viral. So I wrote about that. How he doesn't have to give everybody a hug, and neither do I, and neither does anyone else. And we need to sort of reestablish, I think, a few boundaries on this stuff.
All righty. I will keep that in mind the next time I see you. I'll be up later in the week. Maybe I could give you a hearty handshake.
Nice handshake.
We could grab lunch or something.
Okay, great. And you can make fun of me every time I reach out and hug you now. I am a hugger.
Julie Gunlock from the Independent Women's Forum. I'm just gonna do my Kesha impersonation. Julie Gunlock, IWF.org. It's where you can find her writings, and Jay Gunlock on Twitter. We'll see you soon, Julie.
Thanks for having me.